Because you are that, you are capable, you are gifted, and you are so unique. All of the things that you may hate about yourself are your strengths. It's okay to be soft. It's okay to be opinionated. It's okay to be different. And it's so okay to just be. The world awaits to receive you.
The real estate market often seems like a distant world where only an elite of experts is successful. In a time of so much uncertainty in the air and bad news, real estate investing can seem intimidating. But today, I want to tell you that if you make the right decision today, you can enter the real estate market from the back door. Bad credit record? No credit at all? Do you dread the idea of having a home loan? Do you dream of owning investment properties? You are in the right place and right time, because we have created a program which is a tax lien and deed investment online course of only 14 hours. This course is specially designed for people like you who have big dreams. You will learn at your own pace and everything from your home computer. This is your chance. Join our membership for $19.99 a year. What are you waiting for? Visit our website primetimehomebuyerBuyback.org and sign up today for course access.
Ooh, ooh. Oh, I am so sorry. We was going in. All right, rewind. Had my thing on mute. All right, let's go. Let's start it again. We're going to cut that out the video. So anyway, welcome to Uncensored Enlightenment Talk. I'm glad that you're here with your host, Grace Levi. Today I got comfortable. I had to change my outfit a little bit. Let me get comfortable because this broadcast is going to be about an hour or so. At least the clips that I have is equivalent to an hour. And you know my reaction. So we're going to try to keep it at or about that time or a little bit over. so people can still be engaged in the content, because this is very important for us to be engaged in what's going on in the YSL trial. Because one thing that we're noticing in this environment is that everybody wants to sue, and we have these celebrities. We're going to do a live about that. All of these celebrities that's on a suing frenzies, not just the YouTube thing, because we have YouTube content creators who have been sued in the middle of lawsuits, and this, that, and the third. We also have stars and celebrities that's bringing lawsuits against themselves. So we're going to be talking about that, against each other. We're going to be talking about that in future broadcasts. But we're going to always kind of focus on the judicial system and, social issues as well as celebrity gossip. All right. So let's get to it. Let's get to it. No more holding back. Now we're going to show you again. This is the first clip of YSL and all the other defendants sitting there. You're going to be what? You're going to see them. There we go. A few of the defendants in this case right here. I shouldn't keep showing that. They go, my people think it's funny. YSL. All right.
Examination that you.
All right. So what we're starting with right now is specifically a clip of the prosecutor cross-examining. I believe this person is Dr. Dunbar. Now, I don't think we played all. Let me make sure.
To proffer to the court and to the jury, if allowed, testimony regarding the history of hip hop and its relationship to gang violence. Did I get that correct?
Yes, if asked questions along those lines, yes.
I'm sorry, repeat what you said.
If I'm asked that.
I just got to see his face. I believe this is Dr. Dunbar. Now, we're going to pay attention to her line of questioning, because I want y'all to understand what she's trying to do. She don't want Dr. Dunbar to actually be an expert witness. In her head, allegedly, from my assessment, she believed that Eric Nelson is enough. He has been approved already, as you saw in the last live, and now it's for him to be approved according to Georgia state law. So she's going to grill him and keep using Georgia state law of expert witness in the update to justify the way she treats this man, and the trial didn't even start. So I want you guys to realize what you have about to happen when she gets into gear.
I mean, my goal here is to just answer the questions I'm asked. So yes, if I'm asked about that, I do feel comfortable talking about that.
Fair enough. And you said that you feel comfortable talking about it. Do you consider yourself an expert in that area?
Yes, in that I would not qualify myself or characterize myself as a gang expert, but it would be impossible to consider yourself a hip hop expert without understanding the relationship between hip hop and gang culture.
Understood. And so to be clear, when I hear you say that you do consider yourself an expert in the area, you said, and do you mean in the area of the history of hip hop and its relationship to gang violence?
Or gang culture, gang life.
I'm sorry, okay. One more time.
Gang violence, gang culture.
Okay, so first, before I move forward, I want to send a shout out to Law and Crime, because that is the actual network that is showing the full proceedings. So we are watching them and we're reacting to their content. So I do want to put that on. You can find this in their feeds. So what you see the prosecutor doing is trying to have the expert witness say something that he is not an expert in, according to the submission of the records, according to his application, and as well as what the defendant is trying to present him as. So her angle right here is, okay, you're a gang expert. You're a gang expert. So you're going to hear her ask him this in plenty different ways, because she wants him to say that so that can start to exclude him, because she's going to dig into him and ask him, how do you consider yourself a gang expert? We're going to go in and keep letting her talk, because I want y'all to just get a drift of what is about to happen.
Gang life, the relationship between hip hop and gang culture Yes, that is something I would feel comfortable testifying to.
Okay. Would you please tell the court how it is that you obtained what knowledge you have concerning gangs in the state of Georgia?
I wouldn't necessarily say that I have a lot of knowledge of gangs, today's gangs in Georgia. What I would be talking about would be the early development of hip hop, specifically the pervasive gang culture in New York in the 1970s when hip hop was born.
Okay. And would you tell the court, since you don't have any knowledge about gangs in Georgia, how it is that you obtained your knowledge about gangs in New York?
That through extensive, well, I've written about it, but I've received that information a number of ways. So it could be actually speaking to gang members, former gang members themselves. It could be, there's a fairly extensive body of research around this that I also would have familiarized myself with.
Okay. And writing about it is not in itself obtaining knowledge, right? Are you talking about the research that you did in order to write whatever it is that you wrote?
Absolutely.
Now, when I want y'all to listen to this too as well, because when you hear her ask her questions, she's gonna be, I'm not gonna get too comfortable, but because I got my legs crossed and everything, I know it's gonna be a long line. But when you hear her ask the questions, one of the things she focus on, which I feel is very irrelevant and setting a precedent that's very dangerous, for her to focus on his expertise only in Georgia, because gang violence did not start in Georgia. Gang violence started in a different area. And I definitely know it was from the East Coast, from LA to East Orange, New Jersey to Newark. And so then it just started spreading like crazy. That was my knowledge of the blood and Crip gang type of things really exploding. And then as of now, in the last 2 years, Georgia has had an infestation of gangs and things because people have migrated during the COVID away from more restricted areas as well, and just moving away from where a lot of these gang members have actual ties to things that they know that they want to get away from. So they will move to another state, and sometimes they bring those same behaviors and habits to the new state. So for her to say, do you have specific expertise in gang violence in Georgia? That's ridiculous, because I don't believe there's enough case study or precedent in just Georgia specifically, let alone the sector of gang violence, because we don't have the inside people who are in the gangs making these type of case studies and research research that's funded by individuals who go ask questions, find people, get their reactions, they put them into basically into a chart, says how many people do this, agree with this mindset, or does this particular thing. So this is how these case studies has been set up. A lot of these case studies are then forwarded to peer review journals. What you're going to hear her do is basically try to discredit peer-reviewed journals because of the way that the information is actually put together. And we're going to see how the judge reacts. So I'm breaking this down so you guys can pay attention and kind of understand what she's trying to do as far as strategy.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so along those lines, the methods that you have utilized to obtain what information you do have about gangs in New York, do they consist solely of talking to gang members and reading particular articles?
Articles, books, there have been a number of documentaries on this as well with primary footage, so I would have consulted those as well. I think that probably is an exhaustive list.
Okay. And now when you say documentaries with primary footage, just educate me. I'm not sure what that means.
Documentaries that actually have footage and extensive interviews with gang members in the 1970s. So it's footage from the 1970s. There have been a few of those documentaries that I would have also, in addition to all of the published material and any interviews I would have conducted, those would have been the sources that I would have, yes.
Thank you. And I do not mean in any way to be offensive, but you do not consider yourself Black, right?
I do not.
And you do not correlate, or you do not consider the same Black culture and gang culture, right?
No, of course
Okay.
not. And actually, the gangs in New York were also Latino as well. I mean, just to make that clear.
Okay. Now, what is it that you consider a gang, since you said that you consider yourself an expert in?
So what she's doing is asking leading questions. And eventually the defense is going to get aggravated because she needs to get to the point.
The relationship of hip hop to gang violence. Please inform the court and apprise me of what it is that you're talking about when you say gang.
Well, if I'm talking about it in the 70s or now, I mean, I know that various states and the federal government, you know, at least the states have different definitions, but usually it's 2 or more people with identifiable, similar identifiable garb, maybe in using signs. I'm not a gang expert. What I would be talking about in the 1970s New York would be self-identified gang members. They were everywhere. So you had gangs that would occupy like the Black Spades, for example, would occupy large swaths of territory. You had much smaller gangs that would occupy smaller territories, but they all, territory would be probably the primary way, and then their defense of it, and as well as their own self-proclaimed gang status.
So in your mind, someone who has held themselves out to be a gang member, right, in conversations with you or elsewhere, and their defense of a particular territory are how you would define a gang member?
I don't think I would define. I don't think I'd
No,
be able
you
to
see
offer
now.
a definition of gang.
I want you to listen to what she's trying to do. She's trying to change his words up because he never said that. He said specifically, if we talk to people who identify themselves as gang members, and this is where we get our data set from. So she's trying to misconstrue his words. So this is what things that you need to pay attention to if you're ever on the stand and you have prosecutors such as this that try to use these leading questions and mixing up what the person said and asking the questions in different ways, such as this. You need to be on point and stay on point to what you said, because this is what they do.
I think what I would be able to offer you is, I mean, a definition of gang today, because I just tried and I stumbled because I don't actually know what the Georgia statute says. But what I can say is that it's kind of obvious. I don't know what a gang would have meant in that context.
Your Honor, I have an objection.
Sir, what's your objection?
Beyond the
Basis?
scope of a Daubert hearing, we are not trying to qualify Dr. Nielsen as an expert in gangs. What we are doing is showing, as he testified, that gangs in New York is how hip-hop was birthed in the 1970s. All these questions go to what is a gang, so I object. It's beyond the scope of what fields we are dealing with. Dr.
Exactly.
Your Honor, may I be allowed to reply?
Sure.
Judge, inasmuch as Mr. Steele went into very particular areas of purported expertise that his witness is asserting to the court he has. One of them is the history of hip hop and its relationship to gang violence. It is very much within the scope of Daubert for the court to determine what this witness, one, considers is a gang when he is talking about an area of expertise that is the relationship of hip hop to gang violence. It is of note that he doesn't know the definition or how a gang is defined in Georgia and has not done any research involving gangs in Georgia. And this case is involving acts of gang activity, part of the evidence that the state will be showing and that he will be testifying in a trial regarding involves gang activity. And for him to be able to testify as an expert in the field of the relationship of hip hop to gang violence, he necessarily would need to be able to say what he considers a gang and any research and methodology studies that he has done as they relate to gangs.
Now, this is where the expert witness kind of slipped up because anybody could define a gang at the end of the day. I mean, not to say that it's sad that she expects him to know the actual Georgia code or definition of gang, but from what I know, the official definition of definition, the federal definition of gangs is used by the Department of Justice as a Department of Homeland Security, blah blah blah. One, in association with three or more individuals whose member collectively identifies themselves by adopting a group identity, which they use to create atmospheres of fear or intimidation, frequently by employing one or more of the following common names, slogan, identification signs, symbols, tattoo, or other physical marks, styles, or colors of clothes, hairstyle, hair signs, or graffiti. So you can say we got a lot of gangs in America. We got gangs in politics. We got gangs in the celebrity world that always throwing up that stuff. We got gangs that, yeah, I think he should have knew what the hell a gang is because they all in the gang. She in the gang of the prosecutors and shit, getting people with the sheriff, getting people locked up for no reason. For charges they knew didn't even exist. That type of gang mentality where you just go with the status quo. She know what a gang is, whose purpose is to engage in criminal activity and use violence or intimidation to further their crimes objectively. We know a lot of official organizations in America has used criminal activities as well as violence to intimidate for their objectives as well, allegedly. Not just the ones that walk the street. So I think he should have known. Is more definition as of 5. The association may be also possess some of the following characteristics. The member may be employ rules for joining and operating into the association. Sound familiar? The members may meet on a recurring basis. The association may be provided physical protection of its members from another. Doesn't it sound familiar? So he should know what a gang is because we got a whole lot of gangs, not just gang. So he should have just said that. He should have just knew that, which can define even her people. Okay? I just wanted to get into that. I had to read that to y'all because he should have knew that and not let her be able to take him on a damn circle because her ass asking these stupid questions. Excuse me.
I'm gonna
Look at her.
I'm going to overrule Mr. Steele's objection. I'm going to let him testify to that, madam. But
so y'all do remember that it's certain criteria that the defense team put in as far as what these expert witnesses going to be testifying to. So what she's going is point by point to find any flaws. So she went to a point, I don't know if it was point A, B, or C, but you know it's from A to I remember that. One of the points that he said that he's expert in hip hop and associated with gang violence. So to be able to do that in her eyes, you need to be an expert in both, So let's continue to listen.
Does go to what he intends to qualify him as to. Okay, so in terms of historical aspect
Thank you, Judge.
Relationship to gang violence. So I'll give you a little more latitude. On that issue, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
So,
I'm giving her some more space to ask.
as I understand it, sir, your knowledge regarding gangs in Georgia is non-existent?
I wouldn't say it's non-existent. I read the newspapers just like everybody else. But I, as I said from the beginning, I'm not qualified as a gang expert. I've never been qualified as a gang expert. I don't represent myself as a gang expert.
Do you agree with me that in order to be able to talk about the relationship of one thing to another thing, you would need to at least know or be an expert in those areas, those things that you're comparing?
Well, I'm not sure because the things you're comparing are sliding around. So I don't know if you're talking. We were talking about the gangs of New York. Now you've moved it to my knowledge of gangs in Georgia. I don't purport to have in-depth knowledge of gangs in Georgia. I do have a fair amount of knowledge about gangs in New York.
Okay.
In the 1970s, when hip hop really came out of gang culture.
Understood. And so
So she's asking him these questions. So what they would try to do is eliminate some of the things that the expert witness could actually talk about. So in her eyes, allegedly, in my opinion, what she sees would be an issue if he can guide or gauge any of the jurors into looking at gangs a certain way because he's considered an expert. And if he is on the defense side, he may shape that in a form that they become sympathetic. So what will end up happening if he actually talks about anything to this nature, if the judges don't allow it, because at the end of it, you're going to see he's going to choose what this expert witness can talk about, just like he did with the first expert witness. And if this expert witness, any of the things are eliminated off that list from A to I, if while in the trial they are asked questions pertaining to that subject matter, it can be objected to and probably taken off the record, or not applicable to the situation because they already covered that he can't talk about it. So this is why you have this prosecutor actually pursuing him to that nature. Does it make sense? I like court cases. Not really. I just like to examine them.
So your testimony today to the court is that your area of expertise is 1970s gangs from New York and the relationship of members of the population who self-identified as gang members and the violent acts that they committed to hip hop in its infancy when it first started.
Almost. I would say, well, first of all, they were self-identified, but they were also identified by police as gangs during that time period. So it's not purely about self-identification.
How do you know that they were identified by
The
police?
research shows it.
Oh, stop talking. Okay,
Dr. Nielsen can finish his answer.
yeah, let him finish his answer, Ms. Love.
Thank you, Judge.
That's part of the
Please finish.
research.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's part of the
Look, the judge gonna get tired of her arrogant ass. Talking about, thank you, judge.
research. So anything that I've gone, you actually look and you can see statistics about police themselves were the ones
Yeah,
that
bad
often gave
attitude.
this information about how many gangs were active where. Of course, police were, and they maintained fairly elaborate databases as well. So I could easily demonstrate that to you if you'd like. I would say that I'm not just talking about the relationship between hip hop in the 1970s in New York and gang violence. Violence was often part of gang culture, but it was not, gang culture was not defined by violence. And so it would be much more about the relationship between hip hop and gang life in New York. And to some extent, the extent to which that legacy is still visible even in more contemporary hip hop, the legacy of those early gangs.
So what he's saying is that he's not an expert in gang violence. He's an expert. Well, he has expertise in gangs and their relation to hip hop and rap because that is a connection, especially back in the 80s and the 70s. Okay.
Roots.
Do you realize, or is it your understanding that as Mr. Steele has represented to the court, he intends to tender you as an expert in the history of hip hop and its relationship to gang violence?
I would probably, if that's where he wants to limit it, then yes, I could certainly do that. But I could also speak to a broader culture, gang culture as well, if that's what he would ask me to do.
And have you done any studies? You so that I'm clear, you don't have knowledge via research or personal knowledge of gang culture in the state of Georgia. Am I correct?
Research, no. Personal knowledge, yes. I mean, I think.
Because the gangs in Georgia just started 2 years ago, you big dodo. Well, the gangs on the street, the old country boy, good old system gangs been in Georgia. Yeah.
I indicated that I testified in Fulton County. And so I did learn at the time a fair amount about gang life, just listening to the gang experts and doing some research for the case. That's personal knowledge. So I do have some personal knowledge. I do not have any, it's not anything that would allow me to be qualified as some sort of expert in that area, no.
And is it your testimony that the knowledge that you have of gang culture in Georgia comes from gang experts that you heard in a single trial in Fulton County?
Well, and I think I also indicated that I read newspapers the same way everybody else does. And as part of any research, I'm going to try to familiarize myself as much as I can with the lay of the land.
So we're going to try to move forward a little bit further, but I want you to understand her question and how it's out of pocket, because this YSL case is also connected to people in Newark as well. There are people from Newark, New Jersey, who had some connection to this YSL racketeering case. So I really think that she needs to level down with her type of questions, because she is ridiculous.
Testimony at that one trial, as well as various media sources. I wouldn't want to limit it to newspapers, but yes, I'm not a gang expert.
So if you
we literally 20 minutes into this and she's asking the same damn question. One.
Do you still, is it still your position that you intend to offer this honorable court and a jury, if allowed, relevant testimony as an expert in the field of the artistic traditions that preceded hip hop, including slave spirituals, blues, jazz, and urban fiction?
Yes, absolutely. Those would not be, that's not an exhaustive list of all of the antecedents, but yes, I would feel very comfortable offering that.
And what, in your proffered opinion as an expert, would you consider the relevance of that type of testimony to these type of proceedings involving persons charged with
and this is out of pocket? She shouldn't be asking him this, and I think that he should object right away. Why are you asking this type of question?
Criminal street gang activity under the official code of Georgia.
It wouldn't be necessarily related to the gang code in Georgia. It would be to contextualizing the lyrics that if you're permitted to introduce as evidence.
The rap song was all over. So it wasn't just in Georgia, applied to Georgia law. But I understand that crab trial is happening in Georgia. But she's grossly disgusting with her questions. I'm just going to let you know. I don't like it.
That I would provide
context. It is unnecessary and long and dragging.
If the court would permit me, I just need a tissue if the court can.
Yes,
pour me one.
Go ahead.
If asked, I would feel comfortable providing context to a jury as to why the lyrics are the way they are and how there is a really long history to help.
Now listen, after he says this, he said he will mind telling the juror why the lyrics is the way they are. And when he continues to say it, she's going to come back and say something. Why?
Explain that. So maybe one example would be just to illustrate. It might be, because I think many people find it hard to imagine what is the connection between the slave spirituals and gangster rap. It sounds crazy. But actually, there are all kinds of similarities, and this is borne out by numerous scholars. But for example, many of the songs, the slave spirituals, were coded, right? And that performed a practical function, right? Because if someone were listening, they could communicate in ways that would not have been otherwise permissible. And what you see, and so language becomes coded and slippery. And that is precisely one of the things that you notice in rap music. That's one of the hallmarks of it, is that interpreting language, that language has evolved. And in many sort of Black artistic forms, language has become multivalent. It has multiple meanings. Those meanings shift over time. And we can see that. It's not just true of rap music. We can see it for centuries.
And so is it your testimony that the relationship between spiritual saying by enslaved persons to modern day hip hop, just overall in general? Yeah, about right. Yes, we are an enslaved nation still, and we probably not be physically enslaved by chains, but we are enslaved mentally by our perspective of life, socioeconomically as well, and by the justice system. I think that I'll concede on that note. Yeah, I'll answer that. That's why I'm gonna be up there talking, because I'll say type of shit like this.
Keep me in the
is
background. Keep me in the background doing the research. Okay?
relevant to these proceedings because it would allow you to explain to a jury what particular defendants charged in this case really meant or intended when they stated specific words?
No, I mean, I couldn't speak to somebody's intent. I can't get inside anybody's head any better than anybody else. It would be much more about the listener. So I would be, if I were speaking to a jury, I would be saying, you hear these words, I want you to understand, if I can, or I want to help you understand how this language and how these rhetorical strategies evolved. I think it's illustrative. I think it's helpful because many people just don't understand hip hop at all. Maybe don't like it for sure and don't understand it. And so it's really to provide a base level for additional testimony.
So you would intend to tell the jury how they should interpret the lyrics?
So you see, and he's not saying that. What he's saying specifically is that, yes, yeah, in a way, not how they interpret it, how interpretation of the lyrics actually take place, like a little breakdown of how you can listen to rap music and it'll be a metaphor. Like somebody say your eyes is beautiful and yellow as the sun glows every day. It's not yellow as the sun glows every day, but it sends off that essence and shine. But then if you want to be practical and be an a-hole, you're gonna be like, well, you said my eyes is this. So he wants to break down that metaphors are used. This is over the course of time from the beginning of the establishment of what we call hip hop, which is connected to spiritual Negroes when we in spiritual songs when we were enslaved as Negroes. Okay, and right now y'all think y'all living free, but you're not. Okay, just had to remind you, you enslaved. If you don't believe it, all the hell well, you'll figure it out. Back to the video.
I would tell them how the language has worked and how the art forms have evolved over time so that they could make an informed interpretation for themselves.
And how many, if any at all, of the people charged in this indictment have you interviewed specifically about any lyrics in this indictment for you to be able to speak to that as an expert?
Hold on. Basis.
Dr. Nielsen,
Go ahead. What's the base for your objection, sir?
it's not. Dr. Nielsen, it's
He huffing and
mischaracterizing the
puffing.
testimony. Dr. Nielsen did not say that he is going to provide any type of mental state or intention of the speaker. He's saying, I'm giving a history. That's what this is about. Ms. Love's question is, how many people did you interview? The answer is, you don't need to interview anybody.
Your Honor, that's Mr. Steele's answer.
Yeah, I'll allow it, Mr. Steele. All right, go ahead, madam.
Thank you.
I have not interviewed anybody at that
The
table.
judge is really nice to the
Alright,
prosecutor until he gets
And-
frustrated with her.
I presume, however, you've listened to all of the lyrics, at least the ones that are listed in the indictment.
I have.
And having listened to them, having not spoken to anyone who uttered the lyrics, you feel that you are more qualified than the average person to tell how someone should interpret the lyrics?
No, that's the second time I think
You
I
asking the
said that. I
same
did
question.
not
That's
say
what
that
I'm
I
saying.
was.
He said he's not telling people how to interpret the lyrics. That's why the judge should have just said, I accept the objection. Move on. We're literally, and this, I had to cut this down. This is 32 minutes within my little cut down. But she was going in and in on the same question, and it was really getting me upset.
I'm going to tell someone how to interpret something. I'm trying to give context. I'm trying to explain the genre so that they can make an informed interpretation.
So you're trying to aid in their interpretation,
By educating, that's my job.
but you don't have any expertise in any particular lyric or music or songs or culture, in this case or in the state of Georgia. Right?
See, you see how she's trying to refer it to Georgia. You can't do that because it's not enough experts in Georgia for you to eliminate people and say that he's not qualified because the information don't come from Georgia. This is disgusting. And this is where another objection should have been in. How could you try to create a whole president as a funky prosecutor? And I'm going to say that because she's making me upset with her shit. You can ask questions, but you're literally trying to change the whole structure. Where if you start this, then no other experts from out of states can come into Georgia's court and be valid. The fuck? Excuse my language. That's stupid. And this is how far that they push things in court. And if you don't pay attention, things will slide and create precedents.
I don't understand that question. I'm sorry. Can you ask it a different way?
Sure. How are you going to aid the average juror in interpreting? And you correct me, you stop me when I misstate something.
He said he's not trying to
How are you going to aid the average juror in their interpretation of
That's not the question.
Information
That's not what you're going to do.
That you don't purport to have personal knowledge about or any expertise in? How are you going to
You're
help
right.
them interpret?
I do assert that my PhD and all of my work, I think, asserts to my expertise when it comes to
Thank you.
When it comes to the actual art form. I would
So
again, that's what teachers do. That's what I would hope is the role of an expert in this situation. You give people information, as much information as you can, so that they can draw educated and informed conclusions. It's not about telling somebody what to think. It's giving them the tools to think. And again,
and they don't want you to have the tools to think. That's why I'm live with you right now, so we can have the tools to think, and you can interpret this your own way, but at least you can look at it from another perspective than just their perspective.
Kind of what my whole job is.
And so you would not venture to suggest how any particular words or phrases should be interpreted during the course of the trial?
I'm not sure if I would. I don't know. I don't think I would tell somebody how to interpret something. I think, if anything, I would caution against interpreting things in fixed ways.
Thank you. So that'll be against what she wants. Because if you interpret exactly what he said as what you perceive it as, that's a fixed way, and that may not be correct. She don't want him up there talking either. She don't want him to say that.
Questioned about interpreting, and when you say, let me back up and ask this because I don't quite understand what you mean when you say, I would caution against interpreting things in fixed ways. Can you explain a little bit more what you mean?
Sure.
I have an objection.
Okay.
Thank you.
This goes beyond doubt.
Finally.
Opinion that this could be handled at cross-examination during the jury trial. All these questions have the same vein.
Thank you.
Either Dr. Nielsen is going, I've asked you to recognize him as expert, the state is opposing it, but we have to go on his expertise. The state is now interested in his opinion in front of a jury and how a juror was going to take it. So I object that it's beyond the scope of doubt, but it gets into opinions which are irrelevant.
Thank you.
May I respond?
No. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Your Honor, this witness's qualifications as an expert, his credibility as an expert are all part of what the court must look at to conduct its
You
gatekeeper
should talk about this Georgia thing.
Period. I mean, I am asking questions that go directly to his area and level of expertise, and I'm certain Mr. Steele doesn't want me to inquire further, but that's what I'm asking. And I believe that it is necessary for the state to know and for the court to know in order to perform the court's gatekeeper's functions. All of this witness's purported basis for the areas of expertise that he is stating he will proffer if asked a question. Otherwise, he could state that he is an expert in the field of African American language, Black language, and then Mr. Steele could ask him well, what does that mean in the context of these lyrics? And right then and there, he's necessarily
And then you
talking
could
about
object.
interpreting the lyrics
Then
and
you
telling
could
the jury
object.
how they should be interpreted. So when I'm asking him what he means, when he says he is intending to caution the jury against a fixed interpretation, I'm simply asking so that the court hears and understands his intended proffered expertise and what he feels that he has to offer an ordinary juror that is outside their ability to understand.
Whatever.
Mr. Steele, anything else?
Yes, credibility goes to the jury, doesn't go to this court for its gatekeeping.
It doesn't. It doesn't. But
Thank
I
you.
would say, Mr. Steele, it does go, the line of questioning goes to whether or not he has this specialized expertise.
The judge let her go too
Because
far.
I'm supposed to determine,
You on some bullshit.
that is part of,
Excuse my language.
under the prong of testimony, assists the trier of fact through the application of scientific, technical, or specialized expertise to understand the evidence to determine a fact and issue. So I think it does go to his type of specialized expertise.
Whatever.
Thank you, Your Honor.
But yeah, but I think her questions are relevant to add, to make that determination. So,
Thank you, Your Honor.
all right.
Please explain.
Could you remind me what the question was?
Yes. Would you please explain what you mean when you said, I would caution the jury against a fixed interpretation of a particular set of lyrics?
Yes. I mean, if for example, I were asked, have you seen this phrase or this word in rap music? I could say yes. And in these particular songs, it has referenced X, Y, Z. So I could provide that context, but I want to explain what I meant by that, by saying that I would caution against fixed meanings. I've testified in a number of cases, but I've probably worked on over 100 cases, in various capacities. And what many of them have in common is that when somebody maybe who represents himself as a gang expert or herself as a gang expert offers interpretations of lyrics, they are so outrageously bad, those interpretations. They're actually based on mishearings, mistranscriptions. I could tell you stories that would be kind of shocking. And so what I would want to do is at least caution a jury that lyrics are subject to interpretation.
Exactly.
And I would give them the background that I could so that they could make their own interpretation, but I would definitely want to caution them against misinformation.
So would you explain how that qualifies you as an expert? Because you've heard some gang experts interpret lyrics in a way you disagree with. How does that qualify you as an expert
He didn't say
to
that.
tell the jury how they should or should not interpret a particular passage purportedly spoken by any one of these persons on trial?
I think this is the third time I am not
Thank
saying I would tell a jury what to think or what not to think.
And the judge not stopping this.
Information, and one piece of that information
That's why I know
would
it's
be,
rigged
and I
a little
said this
bit.
on direct, rap lyrics are intentionally slippery. They are difficult to pin down. And so I would always, in any context, caution against rushing to some sort of interpretation when the very genre itself would frustrate that type of interpretation. That's a far cry from telling someone, think this, don't think that. I wouldn't do that. And I'm trying to make that as clear as I can as you ask these questions.
I appreciate that. And I'm not being facetious when I say that I am Black. And would it matter to you, as the expert that you are extending yourself to be, if I said to you, I don't hold the same educational background as this witness, but when I listen to certain songs, it's apparent to me that they're kind of slippery. Would it matter to you that this is something anyone just simply listening to rap music would be able to figure out on their own?
Unfortunately, no.
Thank
And
you.
that's
People could listen to rap music and don't know what the hell they talking about, because a lot of the lyrics are some of them are geographical based and gang based, so they have their own language.
kind of the entire point of my book and a lot of my research is that's just not how it works. Lyrics are highly inflammatory, prejudicial, and subject to misinterpretation and mischaracterization. It's almost, I would say it's almost insulting to the art form to suggest that anybody with a limited knowledge or experience with rap music, would just naturally understand all of these things. It's much more complex than that, and it's really it's reverence to the genre to acknowledge that it is as sophisticated and complex as it is. So the short answer is no.
All right, we're gonna take a 1-second break and get a word from our sponsors. We're about 50 minutes in. Let's go.
The real estate market often seems like a distant world where only an elite of experts is successful. In a time of so much uncertainty in the air and bad news, realist investing can seem intimidating. But today, I want to tell you that if you make the right decision today, you can enter the real estate market from the back door. Bad credit record? No credit at all? Do you dread the idea of having a home loan? Do you dream of owning investment properties? You are in the right place and right time, because we have created a program which is a tax lien and deed investment online course of only 14 hours. This course is specially designed for people like you who have big dreams. You will learn at your own pace and everything from your home computer. This is your chance. Join our membership for $19.99 a year. What are you waiting for? Visit our website primetimehomebuyerBuyback.org and sign up today for course access.
All right. So we're back. We're going to keep it moving. We're going to start moving a little bit forward throughout this grilling of what she's doing.
So would it be your intention to just tell the jury that
Let's go.
spoke with Dr. Dunbar about his testimony?
No.
So how do you know what he testified about?
I know why I assume I know why he was called. He and I have spoken to him.
So this is Eric
Absolutely.
Nelson.
In fact, I believe I gave Brian, Mr. Steele, his name because I'm familiar with his research. I did talk with him about this case, but I think we were talking about the timing. I do think at one point I reached out to him and sort of expressed my condolences for his first attempt at testimony. I understand that did not go well. It didn't happen. I read that in the news. He's been here twice and was unable to testify before the third try. So
He's trying to see if they've been trying to collude on the
I don't know what he testified.
Hypothesis that rap lyrics are more prejudicial, essentially they unfairly prejudice jurors' decisions in criminal cases.
You're referring to a different, more recent study.
Which one are you referring to?
I'm referring to the first one that he co-authored with Nicholas Skurich and Sharis Kubrin. I believe it was 2016.
Okay. And would you just...
It was a replication.
The basis for part of your area of expertise.
Okay.
Would you explain a little bit more to the court what that study entails?
Okay.
So she's going to go into trying to dissect the study and the validity of the study and where he gets his information from. And she's trying to piggyback to say that Dr. Dunbar is getting information from Dr. Nelson, and this is how they make their stuff valid. She's trying it.
It was a replication study. So there was a study back in, it was published in 1999 by a social psychologist named Carrie Freed. And it was a fairly simple experiment, but what she did is she found some stock folk lyrics, and I'm wondering if you've probably heard this already from Dr. Dunbar, but stock folk lyrics from a group called the Kingston Trio. She took, they were violent lyrics. She put them on a piece of paper and stripped it of all identifying information. So it doesn't tell you the genre, doesn't tell you the group. It's just lyrics on a page. She then took her test subjects and divided them into two groups. She gave one group the lyrics and said, these lyrics came from a country song. told the other group these exact same lyrics came from a rap song. And then she measured their responses. And what she found was that the group that believed that these lyrics had come from a country song found them far more significantly more threatening and in need of regulation than the same lyrics that were presented as country. What Professor Dunbar, Professor Kubrin, and Professor Sturridge did, because that was in 1999, they thought, well, okay, that was 1999 when rap was still newish to the mainstream. Surely things are different almost 20 years later. And so they replicated that study. And what they found in that study was that the results were the same. People still found it to be considerably more threatening and in need of regulation if it was characterized as rap music. They had an additional finding, and that goes to one of your earlier questions, that people were significantly more likely to read the lyrics as literal if the lyrics were represented as rap music versus country.
All right. So this is what the prosecutor does not want the actual jury to hear. And they will start to examine their own biases, because you can hear something and it does not mean specifically, especially with our language, that it means that. Now, that doesn't mean that these young boys didn't do what they do, but to use the rap lyrics is the issue as well, because it's setting precedent that's going to put a lot of people in deep doo-doo. So as he said, if the country person say the same violent line that the rappers say, they will perceive the rapper's line as being more violent and realistic. She don't want that.
Okay, Ms. Love, it might be appropriate for us to put a pin in this right now.
Yes, how you want to stop?
The point in the day I told you all.
Boundary.
Let's go ahead and recess for the day.
Yes.
Come back tomorrow morning. Councils, as I mentioned.
She was drilling his ass.
Earlier, we will commence tomorrow morning, the 27th. We'll continue with Dr. Nielsen's testimony for 9 o'clock. So I need you all in place as soon as you can enter the courthouse at 8:30.
So this is actually
Exhibit number 8. Just do me a favor, look at that and tell us on the report whether you recognize that document.
this is the next expert.
I do.
And what is the document?
It is a copy of my CV.
And is it accurate and complete to the best of your knowledge?
It does.
Your Honor, I move for purpose of this hearing, Mr. Williams, number 8.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, defendants 8 for the purpose of motions admitted.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
This is the tech expert.
Honorable Court, and all about some of your work prior to PM investigations.
I'm a retired Cobb County police officer. I worked for a company called Interface Electronics. I started a company called JB Enterprises. Both of them are software and hardware companies that actually install mainframes and routers and servers and different types of network components.
And how long have you been in technology?
About 40 years.
And have you been a programmer also?
About 35 of those years.
Do you have any type of professional licensing or board memberships in this field?
I'm a licensed private investigator, a licensed private investigator instructor. I'm post-certified instructor, which is somebody that can train law enforcement so they can get credit. I'm a member of GAPI, which is the Georgia Association of Private Investigators. I'm also a member of the American Digital Society for e-discovery and digital forensics.
Let's talk about your education and training, if you don't mind.
I have some college. Mainly, I focused on developing software. I've learned from not only the software vendors, from law enforcement, and then creating some of my own software tools along the way.
Are you a digital forensic and cellular telephone examiner instructor?
I am.
Can you please explain and describe what you've done?
In part, I created an application that's called CATIE, CATIE, which stands for Capture and Track Investigative Evidence. It's exclusively for law enforcement that allows them to take data in, such as cellular data, plot it, analyze it to determine if it was, for example, text messages that were opened, or to get a longitude and latitude out of the data.
And have you taught law enforcement in forensics?
I have.
And who have you taught?
FBI, GBI, Secret Service, Homeland Security, a wide variety of law enforcement agencies, from the police to the sheriff's department, not only here in Georgia, but in several different states. The Canadian Border Police, I've had people come from the UK and from Australia as well.
Have you assisted in any research or writing any documents in your field?
I have.
Can you tell this honorable court and the parties what you've done?
Working with Dr. Jim Tanner out of Boulder, Colorado, to develop content that monitors sex offenders, to help with software to help law enforcement, primarily probation officers, track a user's data to see what they're looking at, if they're looking at child pornography or what they're doing with their internet activity.
And for the honorable court reporter, Tanner's T-A-N-N-E-R?
I'm sorry?
Tanner, you said T-A-N-N-E-R?
Correct.
Have you produced any content or done any software development in this field?
I have.
Can you tell us about same?
The primary tool called Field Search. I have 32,000 users worldwide. Again, would include our military, the Canadian Border Police down to Australia, over from the UK, and just about every state in the United States.
Do you ever write custom software to aid law enforcement to collect data from a cell phone or a computer?
Yes.
You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so that's CATIE, but I also have ICE, which stands for In Case of Internet Emergency. I'm the first 911 button. The software is actually patented. It allows a child to press a button, it collects information, it goes to law enforcement so that law enforcement can analyze why the child pressed the button, if the button was pressed because of depression or because of cyberbullying or something related to.
Do you have any patents?
I do.
I'm gonna move a little bit
describe
farther on
everything you
this
have?
so we can
So
figure out his
the
expertise.
latest
But
is
we
called
already
iron.
know that he's there because he does data collection of evidence, okay, and the transmission of it. He has a private company. He used to work in law.
Digital forensics stood upon the court with their analysis. They were quite different between each other. The court asked me to review both sets of data to determine if one data set was more reliable or more accurate than the other.
And where was that, if you can tell?
Judge Bodiford in Cobb County.
All right.
So he has
I know
Georgia
about-
experience.
For people who don't, Superior Court?
Correct.
I'd like to talk with you about the process of analyzing a cell phone, if you don't mind. The
Okay.
methodology behind it.
Yes.
So that the honorable court can make a proper determination. How many phases are there, if you can break it down into such a criteria?
Well, typically there's three.
Can you explain, and go slow, just each one, and say, when you're going to the second one?
There's some good information, y'all. Y'all want to know how they be analyzing phone data? Let's go.
So the first phase is called the collection phase. And that usually has two typical processes involved. One would be a validation. Now that validation means that somebody has given you some piece of data and you're collecting it. So if it were a computer, for example, I would do what's classified as hashing. Now, hashing is a mathematical formula that validates one file against another file to make sure that they are in fact equal. We sometimes consider that to be a digital fingerprint of that file. The second one would be what we call a null hypothesis process. Now, in the world of technology, most of us would understand that we have a 1 or a 0. Those both have value. You take 1 minus 1, that 0 is a value. 1 plus 1 being 2, that would be a value. But that null hypothetical it's empty. There's nothing there. It's not even equivalent to a space on a space bar. because the space on a space bar is hexadecimal 20. So that has a value. So that process allows us to take data side by side and validate it. And we do that by going to the original source. If it were a cell phone, for example, and the cell phone provider, AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, or somebody similar, delivered data to somebody by way of subpoena. We would take that data, and then if it was presented to me, I would validate it. I would look at the subpoena response and see what was provided to that individual. And then comparing those two side by side and making sure there is no differences between the two. So that's your collection phase.
Is there a second phase?
The second phase is your analysis.
Can you explain that?
So you're basically going to take data and compare it to something. For example, if I sent you an email and you called me and said, did you send this email? And I said no. Then I have to do some kind of validation to that. I have to look into it. So beyond looking at who, I have to see if it's factual. I have to see if it's phony, if it's fake, or is there something else with the data? So during
Let's stop. So now, is it making sense to you guys why the defense team is getting the data analysts on the job? Because if there is any type of information that's brought within this case that deals with data analyzation, retrieving information from people's cell phones, and it's, documented in certain ways, he probably most likely will be able to let the court know if it's fraudulent. Okay, so even the defense attorney don't trust the prosecutor and everybody else involved to give actual real documents. This is why they have a data analyst on the job, and I respect that. Does it make sense? Okay, we're going to hear a little bit more of his testimony, and then we're going to come to an end, because the main highlights of this episode is the behavior of the prosecutor. She was acting like a whole damn fool, literally asking one question 1,000 ways, 45 to an hour and a half, asking this man same questions to get certain things eliminated. And I believe at the end of this clip, basically, they took out a few different aspects of the initial defense team request of these expert witnesses to testify out of the A to I list, because Dr. Nelson was drilled so much that the judge is eliminating some of the criteria that he actually can testify on. But that's in regards to Dr. Nelson that we actually, I know, actually, yeah, it was Dr. Nelson who we were just watching for that long time getting drilled.
that analysis, I'm going to determine the who and if it's real or not. And in those processes, it allows me to help pin down who the user potentially was.
So he'll be able to see if
Any
somebody
more
doing
to the
scam.
analysis phase 2.
The second part would be, I don't.
So basically, if the prosecutor or the prosecutor says this particular phone call or this particular video came from YSL, somebody else, they will be able to have this expert cross-examine the data to say, no, it has been tampered. It did not come from here. The original source was from this IP address, and this is how it was changed. He's great.
I don't trust one tool. I use more than one. I try to use two. That identification, that verification says that one product, for example, gets results that can be identified by using a second tool, and they match. So I may not do that to every record, but I may take a sampling, for example, 100 rows from each, run it through two different tools, and make sure I get the same output to that. If I do, then I know I can trust the tool. Tools get applications, they get updated all the time. So we have to make sure that we revalidate those, that they're good, and that we're getting the right results from that.
And if they do not balance with one another, then what would you do?
I have to either incorporate a third tool to see if I can make it to decipher the reason for why the two aren't equaling, or I may get back in touch with the software development company to find out why one tool is reporting one and another one's reporting something else.
Okay, so he's trying to highlight some of the questions that prosecutor may ask about the validity of the data that he get, and what do they do to troubleshoot?
Everything you just said. Is that true, Mr. Persinger, what the Honorable Court said in my criteria?
It is true.
Wait, hold on.
Under the case, if the court does, to evaluate the reliability of your potential testimony. And if you've already explained this, just tell the court and remind the court you've explained this. I'm just going in order. The techniques or the methodology or the process, as you called it, that you use, can that be tested?
Yes.
And is that what you explained to us with the different tools?
Correct.
All right. You've already covered that, because if you need to cover it more, I'm not trying to stop you.
No, that would include that process.
Okay. Whether your process or analysis or methodology has been subject to peer review publication.
Yes.
It has?
Yes, it's the same tools. There might be an exception to that on the tools, but again, I'm going to use a second or a third to validate the tool that I may write myself. For example, in doing some of the plotting, I use Pen and Essentials. I know that it's accurate because I wrote it, but I can validate that against the other commercially available products that are out there and get the same results.
Okay. The known or potential rate of error?
Yes.
You've already talked about that with the third tool, et cetera. Is that what you were referring to?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the general degree of acceptance in your professional community on how you go through your methodology?
It would be a standard.
Okay. Same thing law enforcement would use?
All right, let's
Yes.
forward.
Or what we call MMS, multimedia services.
Now you have this prosecutor right here trying to eliminate him. This is her work.
First of all, with regard to your testimony, your previous testimony in the state of Georgia, have you testified in state court in Georgia since July 1st of 2022?
Have I testified in just, yes, I have.
State court in Georgia?
Yes, I have.
And were you qualified as an expert after July 1st of 2022?
I was, yes.
I'm asking because the law changed at that point, so I'm just asking about if you've been qualified since. And what kind of, do you have any formal training in the capability of cell phones?
I'm sorry, could you elaborate a little bit, please?
Well, that was, you were offered as an expert in the capabilities of cell phones.
The capabilities of them, yes.
Yes, so do you have any formal training in that?
I have designed software around those capabilities to allow extraction of the data related to those cell phones.
How would you define the capability of a cell phone?
Well, I mean, that could include everything from surfing the internet to text messages or what we call MMS, multimedia services, to analyzing the metadata of the data that's found on a cell phone and extracting that information. Phone call logs would include the apps and the versions of the apps and when they were updated and just what that phone's capabilities were, if it could handle, you know, like a browser that had several pages open at some point, what the processes of that cell phone would do with those pages open.
So a lot of that stuff is going to be stuff that people are kind of learning how to do for themselves these days, as far as the capabilities.
Well, again, the capability of what that phone can do, analyzing of those databases that are on there to see what that user was doing at a particular time.
Okay, so you're talking about more than how a person has used a cell phone.
Well, not just that, but, you know, taking as for an example, a phone that's never been used and then initializing it, making it active, and then seeing what its potential breaches are, what could happen to the data, how a person would get to the access of that data, so that if I looked at that same similar kind of phone, an iPhone, for example, and it came into the lab, then I could analyze it knowing what those breaches may consist of.
Exactly.
And then
so basically what they're trying to say is if the popo did something to the evidence, allegedly.
Qualified as an expert in exactly.
Well, digital forensics, which is usually the analyzing of data of the past. That means it's already occurred. Recovering of an email, seeing if somebody went to a website, seeing if somebody used what we call data destruction, some kind of anti-forensics process that may have been
Any
employed
type of
on that phone.
alterations. So he's going to be looking for any type of alteration breaks in the actual evidence that comes through. So once he analyzed some of the evidence that they bring over, and that's why you have the defense saying, hey, I want the judge, remember on the last live, I want a specific timeline to get all the evidence to us, because it seems like it's just coming from any and every which way and not in sequential order. We have a list and it's not coming in like that. This gentleman is going to be part of the process, allegedly, to analyze the video analysis, retrieval of text and data, because if that's the prosecutor evidence, anything can happen, allegedly. So if you want to understand why they have this expert technology person, people probably just overlooked it, but it's because he plays a significant part of actually the validity of the information that's going to be presented in court. As far as where they're getting all the information from, exchange text, things could be altered. You and me can exchange a text today or don't exchange a text, and somebody show like, yeah, I've been talking to Grace Levi, look at what we've been saying, but it's totally messed up. It's totally not real, meaning I never talked to the person, I don't know the person, but they have my number pasted into this. Certain apps can do that, can put iPhone conversations together. So he'll be able to determine that.
To see if there was an app that was password protected or if somebody compromised it.
Mm-hmm.
And then of the cybercrime, which is data that's happening right now, analyzing system log files. One of my websites is actually intrusionforensics.com, which is the collection of live log files that come from a server where it's been compromised. And then of the cell phone data, I've been provided in several different cases where I've had data that's come from the provider or come from opposing, and analyzed that data to see if a person was, for example, on the phone prior to an accident, or did somebody factually send a text message? Did it come from that, or was it spoofed from another source?
See?
And so you've been qualified in each of those 3 areas.
I have.
As an expert.
Yes.
And the recent testimony that you gave in Georgia State Court, do you know what area that was in?
It would be in Gilmer County. I was also in Gwinnett County.
You can't argue about Georgia. No experts.
Let me narrow my question a little bit. Were you qualified as an expert in each of those areas in each county?
Oh my God.
Different. In Gwinnett County, it was cell phone. In Gilmer County, it was computer related.
Okay. And have you ever been qualified as an expert in all 3 in a single case?
I've had several cases that's happened where an individual would, for example, bring me a computer, bring me a cell phone. I analyzed both of them. Gilmer did have a part of it that dealt with the cell phone, but it did focus mainly on the computer. And that's where you could see the cell phone synced up to the computer, and where the government didn't look at the computer, even though they had learned that through the cell phone analysis that it had synced up with a computer.
Your business be there.
And what kind of experience do you have reading service provider
She
records?
didn't do as well as the other one, but she tried it. So let's get to it.
Okay. I wanted to ask one more question about what you reviewed in this case. What was your finding after reviewing those items?
That's going to draw an objection.
Objection.
What are you reviewing those items for? What purpose?
Your Honor, it's protected, first of all, at this point under attorney work product, and second of all,
Thank
it
you.
goes beyond Daubert.
Yeah, it does go beyond Daubert at this point in time. So,
Found the
anything
link.
else?
That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right.
That's all you got. Shut your
Anything
ass
further,
up.
Mr. Steele?
No, sir.
All right.
All right. So we are at the end. Let's see what else we got to offer you.
Mr. Persinger, can I get you to step outside for just a second, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So this is Mr. Person, and they're going to be swearing him in or making him an expert witness. What you about to say, Judge?
All right. Any argument? On behalf of the state.
Still getting more chance to argue.
We would ask that the court narrow the area of expertise to, at this point, it looks like cellular data has been what he's been reviewing.
No,
at least
that's not the
as
truth.
much as he's told the court. He should be
See, she's
qualified.
lying, and that's so sad how they could lie, because he literally said that most of the information was synced to the computer and they dealt with the computer. The data was connected to the cell phone, but most of our cell phone is synced to the computer if you got Google. Google syncs everything to the computer. So this lady didn't do as well as the other prosecutor. She didn't get on my nerves as much because she's just a little slow.
To this trial.
How would digital forensics and cybercrime not be relevant
Yeah.
to this particular trial at this point in time?
Well, if he's not reviewing any of them, then
He's got to review some of it in order to give an opinion about in relationship, because all three of these are kind of related.
It is.
You got anything else?
Got anything? That ain't his girlfriend. He ain't nice to
we just
her.
want to narrow down to those three things that were mentioned.
I mean, I think that from the court's perspective, digital forensics, cybercrime, and cellular data fairly encompass cell site historical data, location data, the manner and use of cellular telephones, the capability of cellular telephones, the capability of obtaining information from computers and cellular records, and a reading of service provider information and records. All those fall in that particular genre. So
She trying
to
it.
qualify him as an expert in those three general areas of digital forensics, cybercrime, and cellular data. I believe he does meet the Daubert test. I'll go ahead and just kind of.
So he's qualified. I want to hear. I think this is when you're going to talk about the other gentleman not being qualified, or on the next part is when he breaks down what actually expert Nelson will be able to testify on. Y'all know I've been live for a while, so I just get comfortable.
Okay, just for the purposes. Okay.
You got objected?
So no objection under Daubert?
No objection.
Okay, all right. Anything further, Mr. Steele? All right, then I'll qualify Mr. Persinger.
Thank you. So as we see that this witness has been qualified after this long proceeding, you heard us watch it, break it down. You got a better understanding if you didn't. If you have an opinion on anything that I have said in this live, please leave your comments down below, because your perspective, comments, everything means the world to me, because I want to understand how my people really think, or how people generally think about this particular subject matter, and how you think the outcome will be, as far as will YSL and his co-defendants get found not guilty of RICO charges. We already seen that one defendant was separated from the case. Thank you, God, because his lawyer was trying all this time, at least 4 motions, to get him separated from the trial, and they would not. And we found out that the judge actually separated him from the trial when the judge falsely arrested that lawyer for having narcotics in the court, which was not. It was prescribed medication. The law was severely obscured and misinterpreted. That man spent hours in jail. You already know what's going on with this trial. It's getting kind of crazy. So as of right now, the last update that I can find took place about 2 to 3 weeks ago, that may not have some of the information that we share here. I think it's one more part of the outcome of Dr. Nelson and what he can and cannot testify on. But if we have anything new that comes up with this trial, as you know, we're going to keep an eye on it. We do have one more part, I believe, is another motion. So I think probably next week or so, we'll just get into this last motion, and hopefully, let me see something. Okay, so we're gonna do some of the charges being read to them and things like that. So that's what our next live is gonna consist of, us going over some of the charges that they face, how the defense probably would address it. We already see how the prosecutor is coming. They coming in hot. Okay, then women, we got a Shrew and a Betty. A Shrewd and a Betty. Betty over there with her little booty poked out, and the Shrew have her head down. Like, Judge, this is irrelevant. The judge like, how? Because he just knows cellular data. She's like, okay, I tried it. Betty, it's your turn. Anyway, I want to say thank you so much for being with Grace Levi today. If you enjoy court proceedings, reviews of it, talking about it from an intellectual level, funny level, from what I know as a legal nursing consultant, someone who loves to research law. And I like to watch court cases, not really be in court cases. I'm like the person that like to do all the pre-work, getting evidence, doing Freedom of Information Acts. I do those. I report to Consumers Protection. I report to the Secretary of State certain things. Not that I work for them, because you already know. You know how I am. The person I work for right here is back here. This man right here. Jesus Christ and God and the Holy Spirit. Okay, but if things go down, I'm at least go and put the paper into these systems that allegedly is supposed to protect us. But even though half the time some things come out not too good, just as what we talked about in our last live at Shanquilla Robinson, where people are going the right way to not try to get justice on their own, but the hands is being forced. So with that goes to say, I want to say thank you for being here with Miss Grace. I hope you enjoy. You can find us a lot of our content on Rumble as well as BitChute. BitChute, we have lives. I mean, well, we're not able to go live yet, but we have videos that's released every day. The audience is engaging, and I really appreciate BitChute for even allowing us to come on their platform and not censor us. I mean, literally, we got on BitChute and just start running through the algorithm, and I really appreciate that because it's freedom of speech. At the end of the day, they say BitChute is a little bit racist, but I don't care. You can be who you are as long as I know who you are, because the truth shall set you free. Baby, gotta go. Check out our event where we having on June 15th in Atlanta. Here we go.
Would you like to learn a brand new and innovative way to invest your extra money that has a low barrier to entry and low competition? What if I told you that it is a guaranteed method to get up to 18 to 20% return on your investment? Tax lien and deed purchasing is the only way to get into the real estate market through the back door. No credit and no loans needed. This method isn't commonly taught, and therefore the competition is very low, for now. Put together a 14-hour info-packed course which will teach you everything you'll need to know to get started. Learn at your own pace, step-by-step guided video and aids to start you on the TLC deed investment process. The course offers many learning tools for new investors, helping ensure you safely invest in tax liens and deeds. Contact us today and join the buyback team.